All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Hi guys, Ian Lee, the surgeon, checking in with you. You all know me, the man fighting the grave miscarriage of justice.
Don't flinch. We're pulling the curtain back on the injustice on the Greenfeeds case, where verdicts were handed down, but justice was not served. So buckle up. This isn't just a broadcast, it's a reckoning. This is a case of a grievous injustice, and we want to understand how things went so wrong. Listen in every Saturday between 12 and 2 p.m. and hear how the story unfolds. You'll be blown away by its content. Only on Dreamcatcher Radio.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!
This is
Dreamcatcher Radio.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows?
Okay, guys, this is an unusual one. This is episode 6 on Dreamcatcher Radio in relation to the Greenfeeds case. I've got Ian Levers here. He actually called me not too long ago, a couple of hours ago, and he sounded a bit hyper and wanted to get stuff off his chest. And he I'm not saying he's an overthinker, but he thinks a lot. And Ian said, any chance we could record something tonight? And this is on the evening following the episode 5. And I said, why not? I haven't got a life anyway, so let's do it. So this is Ian wanted to discuss following on from the show today that got aired, which I know you was in prison today with Gillian. So Ian, the floor's yours, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. Hi, good evening, Brad, and thank you for taking your time this evening to talk to me. I listened to Phil today, and again, also thank you, Phil, for taking your time today and going on the show. Of course, this is not for no financial reward for Phil. This is a person like many other around the country that have come on board with my story to support me. And I find it very important tonight that I needed to put clarity to some of the points that Phil talked about today, because this case is so big, long and protracted. I cannot put any comments to what the CCRC have said at all. All I can say is that this is taking a very long time to investigate because it is so big, and that is enough said.
On that point, I just want to, before you get to that, right, I want to make a comment. We get lots of comments on Dreamcatcher Radio following this, where we talk about financial rewards and that sort of stuff. One of the comments which I thought was really funny is that the reason why I'm doing this is for my moment of fame. And I think you having a laugh.
Yeah, Brad, I'm at the same, mate. Honestly,
how is this going to make me famous?
Brad, honestly, I've had people when I suggest in the past to purchase the book, it's for profit, you're doing this for money. Absolutely not. Let's just state right here, right now, because this is not in my notes. Something that Phil said that I just want to put clarity to. Phil said that both of them had drugs in their body. Let me just clear this up. Nathan had no drugs in his body. Gavin did. Sadly, and the pathologist, I think it's Stuart John Hamilton, refused to tell the jury that Gavin had both cannabis and cocaine in his body at a high level. So let's just clear that up. And I also want to state this. I'm doing this not only to free my wife, I'm doing this so that Gavin and Nathan can be received into God's arms. Because at this moment in time, it's my belief that there's somewhere between heaven and earth. They're floating midway. And so we need the truth. We want to find out what happened in the tanker that night, and so do the CCRC. Both Gillian and I, we all need to know what happened because this is so big. So let's go into the notes. Phil mentioned that Gillian had 150 days at work in 2016. I want to clarify that is actually not quite correct, but as I say, it is so big, long and protracted and there is so many strands to it that even you, Brad, you gradually get on board, Phil too, and so many others that it's hard to grasp. On
that point, just so people understand, is the interview that I had with Phil today was just between me and Phil. There was no. I did have a very, 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 very brief conversation with beforehand, just to get the gist of who he is and what he's about, that sort of stuff, just to make sure it has relevance, because I don't want to waste my time or the audience time.
Yeah, no disrespect to Phil, and this is things that he's picked up from me, but it's hard to grasp. So the facts are this: with the 150 days, it was here in my cottage in March, 1 month before the trial started, that Gillian and I said to James Shrimpton, my solicitor, James, the diary's here from 2016. Now, the red diary from that year is, if you like, like the fat controller sits with. This is the person who sits in the communal office that gives orders out to where to take loads to that day and which factories to clear, what farmers want orders. So you write, everybody writes in the diary, and then the person in control writes where the lorries are going that day. And so James Shrimpton looked in amazement and he took this. Now that had all the days in that Gillian wasn't there. She also gave over at the same time. In fact, no, she didn't. She gave over, it could have been months, it could be years before, where she'd stopped up nightly, collating, if you like, airplane tickets, hotel tickets, facts, where we were that year in 2016, because we had semi-retired. And so let's just clear this one point up. It was actually, Brad, 150 work days Gillian had off. Now, where did she get this number from? On one of the 3 days that Gillian was on the stand, a junior solicitor called Sally Milner shouted to Gillian as she's opening the court door with her barrister following behind her, Jim Agros, "Oh, Gillian, you had 150 work days off in 2016. And so Jim Agros waited his moment whilst Gillian was on the stand until she was, if you like, flustered. And then he said this, "Mrs. Levis, how many days did you have off in 2016? Now, wouldn't you think, Brad, that this point really needed hammering home to the jury? And so Gillian, under distress, said this, "Oh, I don't know, a lot." So that's that point covered, Brad. It was actually 150 work days that Gillian took off in 2016.
So do you think that was interpreted as that she was quite dismissive then?
It was Jim Agros, if you like, not wanted to give the facts over to the jury, because let me also make this clear. My accusations are that Kennedy's Law, along with all those barristers from the Crown Chamber's office, are all dishonest who took part in the Greenfeeds trial. We'll cover this at another day. And so let's move on to the next point. Phil, it may be that he got this a little bit wrong or not, but I just want to confirm this. He mentioned about a tanker going out and coming out that night to you when you discussed it. I ran 4 tankers. So there was 4, Brad. And if you imagine those lorries going out, doing 3 or 4 loads a day and coming back, you imagine if they're all backed up in that mixing shed. The mixing shed is like an L-shaped kitchen. And if you piled up boxes in your L-shaped kitchen when you're trying to prepare a meal, it's impossible. So imagine my business, I had to pay those wages, all those people that work for me. Imagine lorries backed up if this bogus cleaning or blockages took place. It was, layman terms, nonsense. So just that's that point covered up. And then we go on to, Phil said that in the office that day, in the communal office, there was Lance, Gillian and Stuart when Richard Draycott arrived in with this nonsense, this debacle regarding setting like concrete. There were 2 other staff in the office that day. Aaron Shelley, totally taken out of the narrative entirely. Aaron that year was our accountant before, and in 2016, because we had semi-retired, Aaron was a very bright young man. Of course, being an accountant, he was taking on the role of my role, the managing director. Aaron wanted to step up and run that business, and indeed he was going to do so. But after all this happened, Brad, things obviously took a turn, and I beg your pardon.
So shall we go to a song quickly? I'll just play a song and then we'll come back. You can clear.
I've got one for you if you'd like one.
Go on quickly then.
Yeah, you 2 again in a little while.
Okay, you clear your throat and we'll come back.
if I crawl, if I come crawling home, will you be there? In a little while, I will blown by every breeze, riding and running to Sunday on my knees. That girl, she's mine. Well, I've known her since she was a little girl with Spanish eyes. Oh, when I saw her in a pram that pushed her by. Ooh, my, how you grown. Well, it's been a little while. Slow down my beating heart. Man dreams one day to fly. A man takes a rocket ship into the skies. He lives on a star that's dying in the night and follows in the trail, the scatter of light. Turn it on. Turn it on. You turn me on. Yeah. Slow down my beating heart. Slowly, slowly, Lord, slow down my beating heart. Slowly, slowly, Lord, slow down my beating heart. Slowly, slowly, Lord.
So that was you two in a little while. So Ian, you were saying.
Yeah, so we'd got 4 people in the office that night. We'd got Lance, Gillian, Aaron, Alex, Stuart, 5, I beg your pardon, and then Draycott when he came in, 6. And so this argument took place between, if you like, Stuart Brown was not only the transport manager, it was the general manager, because also taken out of the narrative by those barristers and Kennedy's law solicitors, Stuart sat on all the people that year in 2016, yard staff, not only drivers. So you now understand that his role was far bigger than simply being the transport manager. We'll come on to the statements of Aaron and Alex when we get to that part. So we then move on to where you were talking today about Lad and Gavin and Nathan and about who went into the tanker. Let's just get over this quickly, Brad, because it's all in the book. It was nonsense what Draycott made up. Let's just clear this up. The narrative presented to the trial that Draycott reversed his lorry into the mixing shed and he saw Nathan and he passed him the jet washer hose and he was hanging on and fell in and died within seconds. That was nonsense, and I can confirm this with facts, Brad. The CCTV footage, which I've only recently saw myself because you both mentioned today about it being obscure, as Draycott reverses the lorry into the mixing shed, Gavin is there on the Manito driving down at that very moment. Now, he's the second person who Draycott claims he saw later when he come running from the mixing shed to fetch Curtis. But of course, as we all know, it wasn't Draycott, it was Maruniak. So this confirms that Gavin was there at the very moment Draycott was reversing into the mixing shed. I'm going to have Gareth, who's labelled all the players, if you like, on the CCTV footage. Because remember also, Brad, this wasn't a football match. This was a small company. And remember, when you talked about it being obscure today, it was the police's role, their duty, to name everyone and label everyone correctly. They didn't use no CCTV footage. Yep, okay. So I'm going to have Gareth put an arrow over the Manito, and we can have this because I want this also to go to the CCRC to confirm that Gavin was there with Draycott when he reversed the tanker into the mixing shed. So this again makes nonsense of their narrative. Gavin went into that tanker with Nathan. And let me just clear up. So, of course, Gareth isn't doing this, labeling people again for any reward. This is, a member of the public that can see this is entirely wrong who wants to help. So that's that point there. You then mentioned about the pump and the outlet.
Just for a point of clarification for the listeners.
Yes.
These are because you wasn't party to the episode. You actually listened to it after it was aired. And these are your notes post that being aired.
Yeah, I'm the only person, Brad, apart from Gillian, that knows the entire narrative. There's only us two, because it is so long and protracted, big and protracted, that labelling everyone, mentioning these players, if you like, the script, the narrative, the play in court, there's only us two because it's so big. And we are only just putting sense to it because remember, the CCTV footage was hidden from us until the eve of the trial. This should have been looked at, and you both mentioned the years, 5 years prior. Please remember, it was the 22nd of... Yeah. We went to court on the 27th of April, 2022. This incident, this double homicide, took place on the 22nd of December, 2016.
So disclosure of the CCTV took 1 day before the trial. No one had it.
What happened, Brad? We've got this in the attendance notes. James Shrimpton made 2 requests to the police in spring of 2017. It then went dead. I don't want to disclose too much about these attendance notes, but
that's fine.
They've only sent a minuscule over, and we are requesting.
But on that point, though, you only got it a day before the trial, is what you're saying?
No, I beg you. No. What happened here was Kennedy's Law told us they got the CCTV footage. This was the 31st of January, 2022. We had a couple of meetings. We had one meeting in the Kennedy's Law offices in Birmingham, along with all the solicitors and the barristers. And the footage was very obscure. James Shrimpton, in emails after the trial, when I'm having communications, said, we sent the footage away to an expert to have it cleaned up. There is no mention of this in the attendance notes. And when I spoke to Danny McShee about this, he told me it went to a Cavalier Studios in Stockport. This is a husband and wife business that put VHS tapes onto disc. I contacted Cavalier Studios, and very mysterious what they were saying, but it never happened, Brad. We also have in the attendance notes Molly Mangan, one of Gillian's solicitors.
Just, Ian, on that point, right? Expert witnesses, right, need to be approved by the court. Were these even approved to be able to alter a CCTV video?
Oh, it was such a debacle, Brad. They lied to us. What happened was this. Molly Mangan's also mentioning in March, just before the trial, on the eve of the trial, sending it to have it made clearer. So that's that point. But this is the facts, Brad. It wasn't until, I believe, the 10th or 12th of April, 2022, when Gillian was up in Kennedy's Law offices in Manchester, that she discovered, it was Gillian, my wife, who discovered that it wasn't Richard Draycott coming from the mixing shed to fetch Nigel Curtis. It was Dave Maruniak. Dave Maruniak, all the way up until that point, nobody knew where he was that night. We have in statements and in notes discussing many times, nobody knew where Dave was that night. Gillian, on body cam footage that night, police body cam footage, said she don't know where Dave was. Nobody knew where he was. And it was Gillian who discovered, right on the eve of the trial, that it was Dave Maruniak. This sent alarm bells ringing with those barristers and those Kennedy's law solicitors. They knew then they had a problem. Because at this point, Brad, the CCTV footage wouldn't have been used in a Crown Court trial at all. It was only on this discovery that we insisted you use the CCTV footage. And then, of course, we go to what I've discussed before, what happened on day 1, day 2, day 3, with all people refusing to identify that person coming from the mixing shed to collect Nigel Curtis. It should have been Richard Draycott. He confirmed in court, the first witness, first day, it wasn't him, but refused to say who it was. You both mentioned today about clothing. Richard Draycott wore blue overalls only that day. He confirmed this in giving evidence, the first witness. Dave Maruniak wore one of those large Viz padded yard workers coats. That person coming from the mixing shed to collect Nigel Curtis had the big padded yard workers coat on. It was indeed Dave Maruniak. He went unidentified throughout that entire Crown Court trial. The second witness, Nigel Curtis, screamed that it was Richard who collected him. Well, the CCTV doesn't lie. It's Dave Maruniak. And so that night they went home because also remember, this was the defence barristers trying to find out who it was. And then they mysteriously, very quickly finished asking any questions, didn't want to go on to have this person identified, which has caused me night tremors and my PTSD, by the way. So those two witnesses, first day, well, they go home. The prosecution, their turn to ask Curtis and Draycott questions, turned the TV off. The police, prosecution, didn't use any CCTV footage for the Greenfeeds trial. We have in the attendance notes, when I came out of jail, when I'm getting in touch with Leicestershire Police Force, I got in touch with the DI, Chris Baker, who was in charge of the Greenfeeds case in its final year. I have emails between him and Nathan Buckley. Remember, Nathan Buckley, Gillian's solicitor, and DI Baker would not have had no communications if it wasn't for me screaming from the rooftops. We have a conversation between them, and we have this where Baker says he didn't use the CCTV evidence because it would taint witness statements. This evidence wouldn't have been obtained if it wasn't for my persistence. So we have this also, Brad. Then, so of course that was the first day. You've got Curtis and Draycott refusing to identify who it was, collecting Curtis. So they go home that night, ring Maruniak to say, we've got a problem here because we know it's you, Dave, and they've just let us go. So you've not been identified. Now here's the kicker, Brad. Next day, day 2 of the trial, you've got Maruniak. Dave Maruniak takes the stand. Now in his two statements, his first statement taken on the night of the deaths, half a page long, although we have on the CCTV footage, he was sat in a police car for over 2 hours. The half a page of that statement, that police statement, was spread out, by the way. And by the way, on that statement, no mentioning of anybody ever entering any tankers previously. His second statement, taken a year later, of course, it's all in there. So we've got Maruniak now. He takes a stand. He's got the heads up that it's him. So he says this for the very first time, and it's not in either of those statements. He says, can't be me. I'm around the back, unloading a lorry where there's no CCTV. The judge made a comment.
There was no lorry there as well, wasn't there?
There's no lorry there. By agreed facts, that there was no lorry there, but this wasn't presented to the jury at all. And agreed facts, as you know, this means the police checked that night and there was no lorry on site. Confirmed. So the judge said it's indistinct and Dave Maruniak was allowed to go. The third witness, his son, Mike Maruniak, my yard manager, who set on both.
Just for the sake of this, because
Yeah.
some people have been questioning me about me being like biased or not impartial. The police, did they even ask him, like, where were you? Or apart
No.
from the lorry, which didn't exist, which was established,
No.
if you weren't there, where were you there then?
No, never asked at all. Of course, the prosecution didn't use the CCTV footage at all. They turned it off when it was their turn. So Maruniak, Dave Maruniak, the person, the mystery man, leaves the court unidentified in the Crown Court trial. His son, Mike Maruniak's.
And he got paid for that shift as well, didn't he?
Of course. So the
I'm
third
guessing
witness.
also, to not put humour on this, you don't pay people for fun, right?
Of course not. And everyone within my business, all my yard staff, the Maruniaks, more importantly, because they'd worked for me for decades, they had to fill out, they did this for decades, to get paid, the worksheets, what they did that week. And on all those worksheets, you've always got cleaning, tidying, cleaning, tidying, cleaning. The amount
Okay,
of...
there's a good point. There's a good point there, right? Because I was going to ask you, what's the lowest denominator of things that they would write on their worksheet? And
cleaning that place should have been like the Ritz kitchen. It was a shithole. They used to knock pallets over intention. They did whatever they can to keep me on my knees. That's enough on there. That's all true facts. But that's what they wrote, Brad. They never once wrote that anyone ever entered a tanker, ever, in all those decades. Dave Maruniak's first statement, that half a page long one, stated that I'd shout if anyone entered a tanker. It was referring to the incident of 2011 when Sam Pepper came to the yard on that Saturday to collect some chicken feed, and Tim Walker was changing a pump on the Green Goddess because it had not been on the road for a number of years, and the blend, because we never washed them out, had dried and it's got a little skin in the bottom. And in his wisdom, he climbed in the front compartment of Green Goddess. You can't get through any other baffles. They're half moon shaped. And scraped it out with a bucket. Came over to the log cabin to tell me what he did. Thought he was proud of himself. And in true fashion, you've gathered I'm very loud, I screamed at him. Dave Maruniak was with him. And this was the incident that he was referring to on his half-page long first police statement given that night of the deaths.
Yeah, I remember that.
So... yeah, and so you've got then the third witness, Mike Maruniak, the yard manager. Now, Mike was the person who set on both Gavin and Nathan, and as you discussed earlier with Phil, all the entire Maruniak family worked for me. Now, what do you think if there was people going into tankers? They wouldn't have them there, but again, nonsense. So Mike Maruniak, he again supports his dad. You know, they've both been given the heads up. Dave, they've got you on CCTV. You're there at the scene. Everything was said's a load of B. And he says this. He can't be my dad. He were round the back unloading a lorry where there was no CCTV. It was allowed to go, Brad. That's 4 of them.
Can I ask a quick question? If there was a lorry, that would be blocked in, right?
Yeah, of course. I have CCTV cameras that cover... There's only one entrance to my yard. It's down a long drive, about 1/4 of a mile long. I have cameras that cover entrance and exit. One route in and one route out. There's no other way unless you want to go over fields at the back there, the ploughed fields for miles.
And also the CCTV for that night of the entry and exit, you've still got that? Or
of course, yeah. We have confirmed that there was a lorry that arrived, a Treasures lorry, at the time of the incident, while everyone was down the yard trying to, well, Lance and Jake and a few other Polish workers, no statements taken from them by the police, it was trying to save the man. Those Polish workers, to this day, have never given a statement to the police. So this lorry comes in, a Treasures lorry, Curtin cider, with a load of Coca-Cola. Gillian's in the office, obviously in hysterics, because she's heard that someone's in a tanker, and you see him on the CCTV footage. He turns around and leaves. So that lorry's gone. No other lorries have arrived on site or gone. Dave Maruniak's the person there at the scene responsible for those deaths. And so that's 4 of them. We then go on to where you've mentioned about the pump and all of this about down trying to get to the pump. Brad, it's impossible to get to the pump. You talked about it and you'll grasp this. At the back of the tanker, you've got that 90-degree bend and it's about a 10-inch pipe. It then goes down a 5-foot length of pipe to the pump. So it would be, even God couldn't clear this bogus blockage from inside a tanker. The only way to do it is by taking the pump off the rear of the tanker, which has disappeared now, by the way. The HSE, after I think 4 or 5 years, decided to take it off, and what you rightfully said today confirmed that there's nothing wrong with that pump. But what they did make comment to was that it had been opened. Yes, we know this, because whatever was in there, someone had taken away, in my opinion. So that was that one. You mentioned, it was a very interesting, Brad, you both talked about gases today. It was quite good, that, because, as you quite rightfully said, Lance went into the tanker, there was no gases. Now, the next day, the health and safety executive, and just to clarify, I was up and running at approximately 4 o'clock the next day, so it was just slightly less than 24 hours, because this incident occurred at 20 past 4 on the 22nd of December 2016. So at approximately 4 o'clock the very next day, the health and safety executive gave me the green light to run my business. But importantly, Brad, on that day, on the 23rd, around about lunchtime, someone from the health and safety executive from their laboratories turned up and took 2 samples from the tanker, and they gave a sample to me, tie wrapped in one of those sealed bags. James Shrimpton, my solicitor, then arrived at site and we was discussing what happened the night before in the communal kitchen. And he left with that sample. That was the last I heard of it. The detectives I employed in 2024 have asked for this sample. I asked Kennedy's Law solicitors about this sample and it just blanked me. So there was no sample ever taken. CO2, you both mentioned this. Nathan Buckley, my wife's solicitor, in 2023, in between her appeal being aired, I remember one day chatting to him on the mobile phone, and we talked about gases. Wouldn't you think, Brad, that this would have been discussed in the trial? And I said, well, because I always thought it was methane gas. That's what my father told me from being a small boy. Never enter tankers, there can be methane gas. And he said this, it was CO2, speculation. Now, my friend's a diver, a dive master. Now, Tim's always told me CO2 is a very heavy, low-lying gas. So I said, Nathan, if it was CO2, it would have still been in the tanker where Lance went in. It couldn't have escaped when the lid was opened. And he said this, Brad, he says, I'll have to check this out. This is a year after the trial. It's absolutely so. Again, never discussed or cleared up in court. You both talked a lot today about toxic fumes, toxic gases. You'll remember, I think last year or the year before, Netflix documentary, Corby, Toxic Town. We had dust in the air, airborne, that caused deformities of birth. If I was selling toxic product, I'd have killed pigs up and down the country, or infected pigs. You'd have been eating pork, because all the pig farms that I supplied all the top supermarket brands, including M&S and Waitrose. So if my product was toxic, it would have had deformities. It was lovely confectionery blend. But of course, the prosecution barristers from the same chambers as the defence barristers wanted a narrative to present to the jury and the wider public that I was selling something lethal. I was very proud of my product, and we was growing that business. But as you've taught, for 4 years afterwards, Brad, it took its toll on me. And I will say this, Gillian, bless her, after Lance suffered his stroke, and I was having night tremors, and I did fall apart. She took up the helm, she sat in that seat, and she tried to run that business. Very difficult for her. You know, I was there at home and I was passing on what I could, and I was still going to meetings, but gradually I was falling apart. These are the true facts. So yeah, toxic fumes discussed today. Not your two's fault, because you're picking up what was presented in that Crown Court trial. But there was nothing toxic. There was no gases. Lance confirmed that by going in the tanker.
The point was made, though. The point was made that because of the fumes, it instantly knocked the first person in the tanker out.
So
and
say,
game
yeah.
over.
So the nonsense from the trial claims. But if there was any fumes, Brad, would have had my lorry drivers falling off the ladders and people mixing, going home ill. It's profiteroles. Yes, of course, when you mix these products, of course you can get CO2. But if there was, Lance would have keeled over in that tanker. He didn't. How those men died is still yet to be discovered.
Yeah.
These are true facts.
Well, that's very clear that actually the investigation is willful at best.
Oh, Brad, look, as we've said, I've got the body cam footage. We've got all these things, as you say. And bless you, Brad, for stating this. You can't promise this is going to be finished by the end of the year. I think we could be discussing this in years to come. We've got the body cam footage. Remember, the first two police responders to arrive on site obviously went down talking to these culprits. There was about 8 of them down there around that tanker. Now, let me just state this too, and we do jump about all of us, it's so big. They left the men in that tanker refusing to open that valve for 11 minutes and 33 seconds when Draycott reversed his lorry into that mixing shed before he is seen for the very first time exiting, coming up to the office to inform the office that indeed Gavin was in the tanker. 11 minutes and 33 seconds. And you're telling me none of those knew to open the valve, the free flow valve, where the liquid come rushing out? What happened, Brad, and why these men died are still yet to be discovered. You mentioned about Maruniak, Dave Maruniak, claiming it was explosive. Again, using true facts, heard for the very first time in the trial by me. I heard Stuart Brown on the emergency call when he arrived down there at the tanker, talking to the ambulance service. And in the background, you can hear Maruniak, when Jake arrives, screaming at him, "No, this fumes!" trying to stop him cutting that tanker open. I know Jake's coming back on to do another appearance, and Jake will cover the amount of times in 2017 that Mike Maruniak was caught and had disciplinaries down in the mixing shed for smoking. I lost a complete building the year before the deaths in 2015, and when the fire brigade did their investigations, they discovered that Mike Maruniak was smoking in another shed. This shed went up in flames. But on that night, for the very first time, Dave Maruniak is paranoid about a spark. There was another person sacked for smoking.
Just to drill that home, right? This is the bit I don't get. This is the bit, again, that doesn't, it's very, very whiffy to me, pardon the pun, is he did an on-foot risk assessment in that moment saying, don't cut it open because this will blow up. Where did he get that knowledge from? And we know, obviously, post it was complete waffle. But where did he suddenly come up with this mindful inspiration of what could be intelligence, which you know is not true anyway now, to him say, don't do it?
Let's just clarify very quickly. He couldn't have the men saved. Let me go back a little bit, which has also been written, documented. Please understand, and like I said, we could be at this for years. I were tenacious after the deaths.
Okay, Ian, I'm going to remember the question. I'm going to pause you there. We need to go to the next song if you've got another one there.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so again, you two, Pride.
Okay, we're just going to play that now.
One man come in the name of love. One man come and go. One man come here to justify. One man to overthrow. In the name of love. One more in the name of love. In the name of love. One more in the name of love. One man come on a barbed wire fence. One man he resists. One man washed on an empty beach. One man betrayed with a kiss. In the name of love. One more in the name of love. In the name of love. One more in the name of early morning, April 4. Shut rings out in the Memphis sky. Free at last, they took your life. They could not take your pride. In the name of love. One more in the name of love. In the name of love. One more in the name of love. In the name of love. One more in the name of love. In the name of love. One more in the
Okay, that was U2 Pride. Now, Ian, sorry about that. I had to go to a break. Let's carry on with that question.
Okay, so yeah, we talk about Dave Maruniak doing his risk assessment on the spot and wanting to stop Jake cutting the tanker open. Let's not forget that the two fitters who carried the ladder away prior, who are captured on the CCTV footage when Dave Maruniak is coming out of the mixing shed, wouldn't you have thought that those fitters would have been shown that CCTV footage in court to name that person? Because remember, he's the mystery man. One of those fitters came to court, was asked to come to court by the prosecution, and his name was Mick Drury. He was never shown the CCTV footage. I sacked him immediately after the deaths. He wasn't up to the job, and so he's obviously disgruntled. So you can imagine what he said. But very importantly, he wasn't shown the CCTV footage to ask him to identify who it was whilst he was walking away with the ladder. We know it's Dave Maruniak. He He wasn't shown it. Martin White, the other fitter, never made a police statement. Never asked to come to court. He's carrying the ladder away from the scene of 2 men drowning in a tanker. So anyway, later, after Draycott had been to the office and
Just before
all
you
hell-
say anyway, though, why did you think, in your assessment, to the best of your knowledge, why are they walking away with a ladder?
for whatever reason, for whatever happened in that tanker, because I've got droves of people that told me in 2017 that Marooniacs were drug dealers and they'd asked them to grow cannabis here, there, and everywhere, and people was coming forward that this was all mysterious. Something happened in the tanker that night that is still yet to be discovered between Nathan and Gavin from the injuries sustained.
Yeah.
And I believe the ladder was taken away, leaving them stranded in that tanker until Marooniac got back there with Curtis. And then whatever happened next resulted in both them men drowning when he had someone else with him to help him do. Whatever happened, Brad, I do not know. Gillian and I have stated this for 9 years nearly. We do not know what happened in that tanker. But certainly something else did, and it had nothing to do with my company or my wife or I. Something happened. So anyway, after Curtis has raised the alarm and Lance has sprinted down there, you see him on CCTV footage in fight or flight in fight and goes in the tanker. Dave Marooniac puddles down behind and he climbs up the ladder where Lance is in the tanker. And this has all been documented, Brad, in the years leading up to the trial, in many emails. Peers in, says to Lance, "Leave 'em, youth. The effing dead." How did he make that assessment? That, I believe, caused Lance so much trauma that led to his stroke the following year, because the Marooniacs then started spreading rumours around the yard, saying that Lance didn't get his feet wet. These are all true facts. How did Dave Marooniac, why didn't he want those men saving? Why didn't he want to rescue? These answers are still yet, or questions, should I say, still need answering to this day, nearly 9 years on.
And on that point as well, it's well recorded that Lance come out of the tanker in the end with pig feed, loose pig feed all over him.
Yeah, sure. When I got to the site, Brad, much later, and I go upstairs to the boardroom, Lance is sat in there and he's covered, drenched from head to toe. You know, it wasn't denied, and it was at that point when I said to Lance, because don't forget I'd been to Bolton on business, and I went to the gym for an hour, came out, missed a call from Laura, my daughter, rang her back, she says, Gavin and Nathan are dead, they're dead in a tank, and I thought they fell in the mixing tank and been chopped up. So when I go in the boardroom and say to Lance, "What tank were they in, Lance?" and he says, "A lorry tanker, Dad." I say on police body cam, what are they doing up there? I was shocked, Brad, to learn that 2 men was in one of my lorry tankers and Lance was drenched.
So that's on police body cam, right?
Yeah, that's on police body cam. That's me stating this. The next day, just quickly, to confirm this, 2 suited police officers arrived when I'm with James Shrimpton at lunchtime on the 23rd. They went down the yard very quickly. They came back up to the communal kitchen where we were sat, opened the door, said, "Who's Lance?" Lance was in there with myself and James Shrimpton. He says, "I am." Now, these 2 suits, Brad, were never seen again. They never came back again. But they said this to Lance: "You were very brave, but very stupid what you did." So down there around the tanker that day, because the health and safety were down there, discussions must have took place with those suited police officers to what Lance did. And at that point, while they were down there, the health and safety, because they was the only people down there when these suited police officers turned up, the health and safety executive, obviously, for what happened later, questions put to me, said that the men had fallen into the tanker. So these 2 suited police officers...
Did they say both men fell in a tanker or just one?
Well, they must have done, Brad, because approximately at 4 o'clock the next day when I was asked the question, before the health and safety inspectors went off on their Christmas holidays and didn't return until the 17th of January, was one question: "Ian, do people go into tankers?" I said firmly, no. They then told me, sign here. They wrote it out, A4 piece of paper, that I had to accept. There was an enforcement notice served on me. I could run my business, but only after purchasing harnesses to ensure when my drivers climbed the outside ladder of the tanker that they couldn't fall in. I did so in shock, but when they returned, we agreed that this wasn't necessary. It's impossible to fall in. It was nonsensical, Brad. But when the health and safety inspectors came back to site, they never looked at any of my road tankers again, ever. They put some, as you'd imagine, come to any premises. You and Phil discussed this earlier. You know, they will find faults anywhere within any business. And they did. The new can crushing plant, they said there wasn't adequate lighting and there was a notice served to put better lighting. I put a new gantry all the way around the mixing plant. The fabricator hadn't put a kicker plate on. Enforcement notice, kicker plate.
Okay,
These were the source things.
Here's a good point. There's something that was mentioned. I mentioned today. The it's that let's just say, for example, let's play devil's advocate a little bit here. Is if, for example, your policy was for men or women, whoever you employ, will go into tankers and clean out tankers, yeah? Did you ever provide any lighting equipment to any of your staff?
No, nobody's ever mentioned lighting equipment, Brad. There's nothing. You mentioned today about PPE, which were provided, which, you know, you've got this yourself. You and I, we read it out from the attendance notes from the drivers. Nigel Curtis, remember, the person who Draycott's apparently coming to fetch when we know it's Maruniac. So they're hiding something. He made a fresh police statement the following year in 2017, the autumn of 2017. He claimed that Robin Neve had been complaining about going into tankers, and he claimed that he came up to the office with Robin Neve asking for breathing apparatus, and they claimed that they saw Aaron Shelley. When I was presented with this statement in the autumn of 2017 in a police interview, I came back and told Aaron Shelley this. He hit the roof. It was that point that Aaron Shelley got in touch with the police and made his own police statement. He said it was complete pack of lies. Curtis claimed that they asked for breathing apparatus and Aaron gave them a dust mask. You know, you both mentioned, I want to cover that point. I think it's a bit, no, we'll go further. We'll go down in order and we'll get to Robin Neve. But yeah, that's what Curtis did. Why did he feel the need to go back to the police when Curtis... Go on.
On that point, did you ever purchase breathing apparatus for yourself?
Never needed. Why would I? You know, it's like putting a risk assessment for putting your head in an oven. You just wouldn't do it. It was just not see. You know, we've got Peninsula. 5 years I was with them. We say 70. This is the figure that I was given. It might have been 50, but let's say it was 70. I believe it was 70. Wouldn't you have thought this organisation coming to my premises for 5 years, if people needed to enter tankers, would have said do a risk assessment, Ian, get breathing apparatus?
The point that the question that leads to is two things. Number one is it was never required on the premise itself. And number two is that even the staff themselves, even if, you know, we overplayed it as a member of staff, a disgruntled member of staff who just wants to, you know, have everything and everything. I've met staff like that before. Is that they didn't even ask for it.
No.
The ones that just take the mick a little bit.
No.
So either way, it wasn't a requirement of the business.
But I can tell you this.
Even like let's just use you as an example, a very experienced, time-served person. You look at Peninsula, they've never said about it. Then just basically it was just not something to even think about. And you know, going back to Lance being into the tanker, which is not an ideal situation for anybody, but obviously he was doing what he thought was best. But he was in there for 20 minutes and walked out and had to wipe himself off.
Of course, Brad. We have an email sent to, in a reply actually, Molly Mangan, the other solicitor acting for Gillian. I believe it was the 17th of March, or was it the 20th of March 2017? Around about that day, in March 2017, saying the men had died from toxic fumes. Again, speculation, because never confirmed, stating this. Gillian replied in an email saying, "We've got this from Molly. Lance was in the tanker for 20 minutes. No reply to that, Brad. Silence, by the way. That was never answered to. And so, yeah, Nigel Curtis, why did the health and safety executive say the men had fallen in? And I don't like to give too much away what these villains, if you like, because they are villains, what they've said in police statements, because one day they will have to answer to this crime. Nigel Curtis, on that night of the deaths, his police statement stated that the men had fallen in. So that's where the health and safety executive got it from. Fast forward into late 2017, we've just discussed it earlier, what he said. He said the men, in his opinion, had fallen into the tanker. This was Nigel Curtis. So there you go.
Can I just make a comment on that as well?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to reenact trying to fall into that tanker, I'm not joking, it must take multiple attempts to even get through that hatch.
You couldn't fall in. You couldn't. Andy Hargreaves put a comment to my post way back. He said, and he sent over a picture of Gavin Rawson. He said, that man did not fall into that tanker. He actually said he couldn't get through the hatch.
That's what we did, based on the size that I've seen. And,
Yeah.
you know, I might as well put it out there for the sake of it. The accusation is that Gillian told them to go into the tanker. Do you want to discuss that, Ian?
Yeah, let's go through it a little bit. We have Richard Draycott stating that, and this is evidence documented, that it was he that went into the staff kitchen and gave Nathan instructions to get into that tanker. He himself told the jury, the first witness, that Gillian Leavers didn't say nothing to him. It was Stuart Brown. So this is the driver, the professional person, but the judge said that Gillian Leavers told Nathan Walker to get into that tanker. Actually, for a very mere part of defence by our company barrister, Mark Bally stood up and said, "My lord, Gillian Leavers didn't even see Nathan Walker that day," which is a true fact, Brad.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Everything I say, remember, comes from my memory. Truth. I only speak the truth. I have to remember. I don't have to make up. Could you imagine if I wasn't speaking the truth? I'd be wrapped up in bits now. But because it's all ingrained in my mind, these in very important parts, I cannot never forget them. They're the only part of my life that's important, and have been the only part of my life that's been important for nearly 9 years. I've not been able to focus on anything else. I've lost lots of things all over the place, apart from this. So we move on as you went down today.
On that point as well, and I concur with you on this, is that it's a liar is quite easy to spot, but everything you said to me is consistent, and I've got the paperwork which you haven't even read, and I've read through some of it, and it matches up precisely to what you said. But
Exactly.
the sad thing about some of this paperwork, it's missing many components. But
Absolutely.
the things that are what I call holdings are consistent with regards to your story.
Sure. I've got another big envelope that Gillian's handed out. I'll bring down to you next week. We'll go through that also. It's unbelievable, Brad. It's so big, and I'm going to keep using that word "big" as a hint. So yeah, we've got also this one, Brad. You discussed today about which you said you've been to many court cases where you've got people turning up with trolleys of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Let me confirm this, my friend. Jim Agros the barrister who I signed away. The other barristers, all the defence, my defence, told me to sign away my life, if you like, for Jim Agros. He was going to head up the entire team. He turned up on day one of the trial, and we didn't know this till I come out of jail, with no preparation whatsoever. I was saying through the trial to Gillian, when we sat in that little office that we had, and we're looking at the CCTV footage, frantically pointing out to him the different players. When I walked out, I says, he don't know nothing about this, Duck. Get rid of him. But Gillian, being Gillian, breaks down crying, we can't, it's too late. I smelt it throughout, Brad. I've got emails throughout that trial stating we're being framed, we're being set up. But of course, so yeah, where do I get that he had no preparation from the trial? When I came out of jail, I'm talking to Danny McShee, emailing him. This is a senior person from Kennedy's Law. And he sent me an email saying, there is no preparation to share with you, Ian, but this is no admission of guilt. I have that communication in an email. So there you've got a Crown Court trial, Brad, set out for 8 weeks that was wrapped up in, I believe, 21 working days with a barrister who was assigned to head up the entire legal team with no preparation to share at all. In fact, Brad, he turned up on day one and asked us both to plead guilty. Molly Mangan, my wife's solicitor, in communications with me and to Gillian after the trial, said she couldn't recall this and Jim couldn't either. Remember, I'm tenacious. In the trial, I'm sending emails saying, what was that all about? Jim asking us to plead guilty. So how could I do this if it didn't happen? These solicitors, I'm afraid.
Is that both of you plead guilty?
Yes, mate.
Yeah. Sorry.
So that's confirmed all of that. So you both discussed today, of course, boxes of preparation. There was nothing. I thought, in my wisdom, that there would have been big wheelbarrows of evidence, boxes piled up coming to that court. I think the most they turned up with were the laptops that they sat with in the trial. Those solicitors looking at the laptops, probably looking at something else, nothing to do with our trial. These are true facts.
Yeah. I mean, and that's very concerning. Very concerning. I mean, this is, for people that, that on its face, if you look at the newspapers, you're banged to rights. But when you start, you don't even have to dig that deep. That's the thing about this case. You don't even have to dig that deep. Even just ignoring everything, right? Just Gillian's sentence alone. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. Brad, I may have discussed with you, let's not forget, BBC are waiting in the wings. Of course, they cannot bring this story out until the CCRC have completed their investigation. The BBC have interviewed me, filmed me outside jail. The BBC have interviewed me and filmed me on 2 separate occasions at the airfield where the tanker is stored. The BBC have interviewed the specialist solicitor who I employed in 2024, who only works on grave miscarriages of justice. This is his expertise. The BBC have been and interviewed that person. The BBC have been to the yard and interviewed Lance. The BBC have had the drone up over the yard. The BBC have passed this past their lawyers and editors. But of course, we all understand, until we get some traction to this, until this investigation is completed, they are not going to share this story. I could not have reached out to a larger organisation than the BBC. The BBC have been with me for 2 years. I share a lot of information with the BBC. And so, yeah, this is how big this is. This is the biggest miscarriage of justice this country has ever witnessed. because you will not get a more corrupt case. I'm sure that the entire prosecution, defence colluded together. The
Yeah,
evidence is there.
I do, you know, it's definitely up there, Ian, that's for sure. The definitely up there. But one thing that's really interesting about this as well is that all these monies are being paid out left, right, and centre, and Gillian's been a scapegoat, and perhaps yourself as well. The but the you've been cut off from basically because as soon as you got out of prison, you like I'm sorry to use this word, but you ambushed everybody, and all of them now are basically saying we're not talking to you anymore.
Absolutely.
And even the first couple of emails, they were non-responsive anyway. I remember you were telling me you emailed Lancashire. Is it Lancashire Police? Is it Lancashire? Leicestershire
Yes.
Police.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
90 odd times. And
Crime Commissioner's office.
yeah. And basically they just ignore you. And
Well, I first of all started with the chief. Well, I had a lot of emails with DI Chris Baker, an awful lot. I then went to the chief of police, the ex-chief of police now, Rob Nixon, and I offered him the perjury report and CCTV report that Kennedy's Law put together after the trial, at my insistence, in 2023. Anyway, he didn't want to see these, he didn't want to investigate them. But after the two detectives that I employed in 2024, I kindly asked him if he would like to receive this investigation report that confirmed that this was indeed another crime. He came back through one of his office staff and said, "We've told you we're not looking at this." Completely ignored my question. This then went to the IOPC, Brad. Just me working at it, but just because, don't forget, the specialist solicitor is having to work with the CCRC. The only route that he says that this will work. So he's not involved with none of my efforts. And in fact, he told my wife on his first meetings with her, Ian can do all of this, but he will get nowhere. But what I'm confirming for the British public is what happens with other people like myself. Because let me tell you, I have droves of people reaching out to me who have been in similar situations. The police, like solicitors, we have two close friends of ours, old close friends, who are solicitors. And going back 20 odd years ago, they used to say to us, deny, 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 deny. This is what the police do, Brad, until they have to carry out their duty. And so I go to the IOPC and they come back to me because I'd already been to them in 2023. This is 2024. And completely ignore what I'm asking. This very detailed investigation carried out by two ex-police officers who work for Greater Manchester and Merseyside Police with a joint 65 years policing experience behind them on cases of fraud and anti-corruption, completely ignoring this report that I wanted to serve on Rob Nixon. The IOPC simply came back and said, "We told you to F off before." This is what they do, Brad. And then we wonder why I'm suffering mentally, thinking, God help anyone else, because let me tell you, I banged on that door with a sledgehammer. So I've been, and at the point when I went back to the IOPC at this point, I'm now with the Crime Commissioner's office, Rupert Matthews. 90 emails went to the Crime Commissioner's office, going right into this year, 2025, for the Crime Commissioner, through his office staff, because he wouldn't talk to me, simply stating, Rob Nixon isn't dishonest. How can the captain of the ship not be dishonest when his staff have deleted body cam footage, fabricated evidence, something you mentioned about here today in your conversations with Phil? How did this land at the feet of Gillian? Let me tell you, Brad, the Leicestershire Police Force put their own company organisation chart together to present to the jury, putting my wife in the captain's seat. with everyone reporting to her. How could they do this?
So, like a shadow director or something?
No. They, in their opinion, my wife was running the business. And so they, like my company organisation chart, had Gillian in a little separate box on the left-hand side with no arrows coming to her or from her because she was the accounts manager. The Leicestershire Police put their own company or organisation chart together with everybody reporting to Gillian. I was asked to go to Kennedy's law offices in March 2022, just before the trial. Gillian was over in Spain at our home. I was asked to go down there. I saw Catherine Hume and George Emery, and for the entire trip, driving to Birmingham, to put one piece of paper in front of me and say, "Do you recognise this?" So I hit the roof. Brad. What? What is this? The police have put together. You've got to change this. You can't have this. That was presented to the jury.
Okay, here's a question before we go to a break. The like I say, for the sake of the audience, this wasn't anticipated, to be honest. It was just that Ian wanted to have a chat and get it recorded, and I said, well, why not just put it on the show? Was Gillian mentioned in the health and safety documents as the person to report to?
No, my friend. Let me tell you this also. This is in the evidence that is being presented and used. My driver's had a driver's handbook, and there's emergency contacts in that driver's handbook. Because remember, my business was tankers delivering, let's say we say Greenfeeds blend. Let me just put it to what it really was. It's confectionery blend. So the drivers, because it's a very small business, have an emergency contact numbers and who to contact if they have a problem. And both you and Phil discussed this today. Gillian doesn't know one end of a truck or a tanker to another. Gillian Levis's name isn't in the driver's handbook. That year, 2016, there were two people who the drivers were to report to in case of an emergency, such as a blockage at a farm in Oxford. Stuart Brown and Ian Levis, not Gillian Levis. This wasn't given to the jury either.
That's quite important, don't you think?
Absolutely, my friend. You mentioned also about Kirsty Iqbal, the lead investigator, and her qualifications. Now, in the trial, on I think day 3, when all these individuals, these players, were refusing to identify themselves, I went up into the court canteen, closed my eyes, and refused to continue. Kennedy's law solicitors and those barristers from the Crown Chamber's office sent upstairs to me Catherine Hume and George Emery. I sat there with my eyes firmly closed. I said, I'm not continuing. How can you have a Crown Court trial when you have CCTV footage and people refusing to identify themselves? Gillian also joined them, and she was crying. And they coerced me to continue saying this. They will rip Kirsty Iqbal to bits. Watch the barristers when it becomes her turn to take the stand. I can tell you, Brad, because she was, I believe, the last witness in the trial. The barristers asked her no questions at all. No questions at all. I said to my barrister, Malcolm Galloway, afterwards, what's going on here? What have you done here? He said this. You do not ask questions of the police. It looks bad on you. These are true facts.
I've never heard of that sort of thing before.
No, that happened. That happened. So no questions of Kirsty Iqbal. So we come down to what you were discussing, and you discussed Robin Neve. And Phil said that.
Can we just go
Gillian
back? Can we just go back to that comment? Right, you should never undermine or ask questions of the police. How could that even be a possible phrase? How many police officers get sued and I know what happens is lawsuits go to police officers, then the relevant chief constable takes it over. But how is it not possible to cross-examine or question a police officer? And why? I mean, how? I can't even comprehend that being a commonsensical sort of statement to make. I mean, you're in it, so your mind's probably not straight. But for me,
let me just interrupt you there, Brad. What you said today, doesn't it now answer your questions why I'm affected mentally?
yeah,
The things that they said to us and got away with, it's it's a wonder I'm still here, Brad, to be honest with you.
yeah,
I
because
don't know how else to live.
you're having to think on foot to
Yeah.
what you're being told. I'm, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'm just thinking, like, I don't know what time it's like lunchtime. I can't say what I want to say, but WTF? Because that makes no sense. That
Well-
how you cannot seek to undermine what the police are saying and doing, because that means they've got a higher authority than everybody in the land.
Well, you both mentioned today, Brad, about not going into attendance notes. You know, those attendance notes will confirm what I say is true. I think they went through a series of questions to her, and it was this. Did he leave us, or, let's start with this. Did Gillian Leavers make any comment in her police interviews? No. Did Stuart Brown make any comments in his police interviews? No. Did Ian Leavers in his police interviews make any comments? No. This was a lie, Brad, because in one of those years, while she was discussing Robin Neve with these farcical claims of entering tankers, it affected me so badly, and this will be documented in emails to my solicitor. In fact, it is. I said to him, James Shrimpton, don't let her ever ask me this again. So guess what happened? The next police interview, she's coming out again with these farcical questions, and we have Robin Neve's daily job sheets with never not mentioning once entry to tankers. So I smirked, and she says, do you find it funny? Which I'd done before. And by the way, what affected me the year before, I smirked, and she said, do you find it funny? And I continued, but let me tell you, boy, it bothered me so badly. So I've got, this will be written in an email to my solicitor, James Shrimpton. Do not let her do this to me again. Of course, he didn't mention nothing like this to her. So it happened again. So I broke silence, Brad. And I said, no, I don't find it funny. Do you? You asked me that, I think 3 years ago, what it was, 2 years ago. I didn't find it funny then. I don't find it funny now. So would you think that she committed perjury, Brad, by stating that I didn't make any comments because it wasn't true? I've now, obviously in 2023, me kicking and screaming from the rooftops, I have got that police interview with me saying that. But she told the jury that I went no comment. I believe, in my opinion, that's perjury, because you have to tell the entire truth. She should have said, well, actually, Mr. Leavers did say this in this interview, but she didn't. So that was what I was upset about. But yes, you will find in the court transcripts, that's the only questions they asked of the lead investigator of the Greenfeeds case.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's just go for a very quick break, and we'll go to the final part of this. Ian, would you like to play your next song?
Did we do? We've done Pride, have we? Have we done?
Yeah, we did
Walk On?
YouTube Pride last time. Yeah.
Pride, Walk On. We've done Walk On.
You want Walk On? Yeah.
Or in a little while. I can't remember which I said. Sorry, that's my mental.
Last time was YouTube Pride.
Okay, Walk On or In a Little While. I can't remember which one was. I think we've done two. I'm mixed up.
We did do two, but you put me on the spot.
With or without. Let's go to With or
was.
Without You, and then have a look.
Yeah, with or
sorry,
without.
Brad. It's how it is. I didn't tick them off.
Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
thorn twist in your side. I'll wait for you. Sleight of hand and twist of fate. On a bed of nails she makes me wait. And I wait without you. With or without you. With or without you. Through the storm we reach the shore. You gave it all, but I want more. And I'm waiting for you. With or without you. With or without you. I can't live. With or without you. And you give yourself away. And you give yourself away. And you give. And you give. And you give yourself away. My hands are tied. The body bruise she got me with. Nothing to win and nothing left to lose. And you give yourself away. And you give yourself away. And you give. And you give. And you give yourself away. With or without you. With or without you. I can't live. With or without you. With or without you. With or without you. I can't live. With or without you. With or
So that was you too. Now, Ian, we're in the final segment, really, which was unexpected, to be fair. But the whilst you've got the energy there to talk about stuff, I'm just going to lay the floor for you now. What do you want to talk about now?
Well, there are quite a few other bits, but we can cover these in the next episode. So we need to actually cover witness statements and what Phil and yourself discussed earlier about Robin Neve, where you mentioned Gillian having a solicitor's interview Robin, but then him saying, "Oh no, I was going into tankers and we kicked him into the long grass." No, this isn't actually correct, actually, Brad. the solicitors never interviewed Robin Neve. It was just the police interview. What happened was this. In early part of 2017, a few month after, Gillian was saying, interview Robin. He will confirm that I'd never asked anyone to go into tankers, because what we'd got is Robin's doctor's notes why he left the company. He was being bullied by the Marooniacs. We'd got texts between Gillian and Robin where Gillian was saying, would you like to meet for a coffee, and so on. We've covered this before. So this was the reason we were saying contact Robin. And then lo and behold, police statement comes through, and it blows us off his feet. Is hurling everything at us by the kitchen sink. But I want to go on to something here now. The defence statements, witness statements. You and I, we've read out now. You've gone through attendance notes of the drivers, the very people who should have been called to court, and these attendance notes were hidden from us. It was the same with all.
On that point, though, these are the only ones we've been given. There must be more.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, listen, Brad. The witness statements taken by my solicitor, James Shrimpton, they too was hidden. In 2023, when I came out of jail, I'm screaming for them. I wanted to see them. And of course, we've discussed this. They came over in his scruffy handwriting, and I was furious, went back to them. And then they finally put them together in some readable format. And yeah, nobody in there was stating they ever went into tankers. My wife's solicitor, Nathan Buckley, when he left Clyde & Co. to join Kennedy's, I said, where's your statements, Nathan? And he came back stating that he only took 2 witness statements, and he said he left them behind at Clyde & Co. I got in touch with Clyde & Co. and they said that was nonsense. He took everything with him. So this is the debacle that's been going on, Brad. No defence witnesses were called to the trial. No defence witness statements were used at all in the trial. Everything was hidden.
What? Literally none?
None. Nothing. There's only Gillian, the defence witness, called for my company, who was on the stand for 3 days, where a co-defendant, Stuart Brown, and I also want to mention something else here. I think you both discussed this morning about the gross corporate manslaughter. I believe actually, and we'll have to check this out with the specialist solicitor, I believe it was a criminal one from the police. I believe it was gross misconduct manslaughter, a criminal offence. But those barristers from the Crown Chamber's office weren't criminal barristers. There was health and safety barristers. And so there was only my wife who took the stand. She was on there for 3 days.
Just for clarification, you said gross misconduct there. What you mean is like something different, right?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was a criminal offence.
Yeah. But basically, it was what's the charges again? Let me just try and get the wording right. It was well, it's corporate manslaughter anyway. That was number one. But what you're saying is the solicitors were not suitable for the job that they're employed to.
Absolutely not. No, there was health and safety barristers. They had no criminal background. Interestingly, there was only one barrister who had criminal background. That was Stuart Brown's, Dominic Kay. Stuart Brown, interestingly, took the stand for just 2 hours. Stuart Brown, to save his skin, had to go along with the Marooniacs narrative that people were entering tankers. He claimed that at Wayfeeds they went in. I've confirmed with drivers at Wayfeed, they're there in the attendance note. 2 ex-drivers of Wayfeeds, Paul Bullard and Ian Lovelace, both worked at Wayfeeds. Both never saw anyone in a tanker before. Stuart Brown claimed at Wayfeeds that they went into tankers annually, stainless steel barrels, to check for cracks. I've checked with 2 trailer fitters who worked for Wayfeeds and said this is complete nonsense. You've got other people to interview, experts within the tanker industry. They will also confirm this. Stuart Brown, along with his barrister and our barristers, needed to protect Stuart, and he had to go along with the Marooniacs narrative. Unfortunately, it's a pity Stuart didn't tell the truth. But by him and the narrative presented to the jury, making Stuart appear naive, without training, this man, with 40 years of experience within the transport industry, claimed that they went into tankers with a 2-inch strip down the middle to wash it out. I spoke to, because of my efforts, I met with 2 senior police officers from Nottinghamshire Police Force this summer. One of those, Harry, when I told him this, he confirmed with me that that was ridiculous. You wouldn't climb into a tanker, Brad, would you, with a 2-inch bit down the bottom to wash it out with a jet
Well,
wash?
the other thing
No.
I thought about as well is I spoke to people that work in tankers. They do like mechanical welds and all that sort of stuff. But the
Yeah.
first thing that I thought about, right, okay, right, let's just assume the chronology is correct. They come back to the yard and said, look, this food or confectionery is not going to budge. It's like concrete, yeah. How
Yep.
do they know that anyway? But ignore that bit, right? But also, why would you even? What did you go in with tools to try and break this concrete mix up, or what? There's no tools found.
No, never been heard of before.
Yeah,
Never
but
been heard of
and
before
then
or after.
and then I spoke to some fabricators who do repairs on tankers. They would not go in, even if, for example, going back to a sense of urgency, right? There wasn't no sense of urgency for them to go in the tankers that night, right? With, no lighting, no nothing, literally going in there with no equipment. What they're going to do it with their hands?
Yeah, it was nonsense, Brad. Never been said before. How could I semi-retire, leaving my? Imagine, I supplied my product down into West Country, down into Devon. Could you imagine a driver ringing me up, Ian? I've got, we go out with 28-ton loads, 28,000 litres. Ian, I've got 2 ton off it set like concrete. Oh, Ian, it's blocked. I'm coming home. We had to backload on the way home, so they'd call in at Yo Valley on the way home, pick up a load of yogurt. How could the business function, Brad? It wouldn't be able to function one single day. That night, when that tanker was backed into that mixing shed, Perry Cartwright came on to work. He worked back to back with Steve Hunt on the roll-on, roll-off articulated trailer. We service factories that if you're not there to clear them, to take their skips away, the factory stops. So that night, let's say it's like concrete. Let's say this happened. What's Perry doing that night? He's not covering his shift. So it has a knock-on effect with Steve Hunt because they can't get into the mixing shed to tip the load. Up the road there, you've got Lawrence Patisserie, where we clear circa 100 tonne a week of profiteroles, trifles, cream cakes. They're screaming for their skip to be emptied. You might have to go to a Backavore site next to clear a load of pasta. They're screaming. They're scheduled in the book. Their Scania vehicle that they work back to back, nights and days, did 1 million kilometres in no less than 3 years. I had to change the truck every 3 years because they was doing over 1 million kilometres. We worked them to death. We had to be efficient. We had to service factories. So it's what happened that night and what was said that night was unique. Never been said before. But isn't it miraculous how in 2017, when I got rid of the Maruniacs and their associates, that there was never a mention again of concrete, a blockage, the need to clean a tanker out. It stopped miraculously. But by the way, none of this was given to the jury.
Yeah, but I go back even to the jet housing. My understanding is there wasn't even a jet hose near the tanker.
Oh, yes, there was, because in the mixing shed, the only procedures that we carried out through the feed organisation that we belong to, FEMAS, was to wash out the skips. When the skips come in, you've got cakes in there, they do clean those out. The auditors that came to me annually for a 2-day audit would climb all over those skips, Brad, to inspect them, to ensure that they were spotless. If they saw a bit of mould, I'd have a non-conformance. In all those years that I was in FEMAS, I believe from 2004, did any auditor climb any of my tankers to look inside one? We had a chart designed by an expert nutritionist called Phil McTiffin. That chart had lists of products down one side and the other side. That was in the driver's handbook. Those products down there and across there, if there was not one that clashed, there was no need to wash a tanker out. we never carried any products that clashed. Very interestingly, in the attendance notes, we told those solicitors to contact Phil McTiffin, this person who actually should have been brought to court to testify. We have in the attendance notes, Brad, which I'll bring down to you, Molly Mangan claiming that she rang him, he didn't answer, she left a message on his voice recorder, and that was that. That was that. End of.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking.
All true facts. All true facts. You mentioned Chubb paying out all these substantial funds. I don't want to go too much
didn't. Phil did.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to go too much into Chubb, but I asked Chubb when I came out of jail to pay to have the CCTR drive retrieved because the Leicestershire Police Force, whilst I was in jail, handed over the hard drive in a polythene bag to my daughter. She collected it from the police station. Isn't it amazing though, Brad, how the hard drive isn't considered an exhibit? They wasn't interested in the hard drive, but it had been wiped clean. And so I sent it to the company. There was only 2 companies that we knew of in the United Kingdom that did forensics on CCTV footage. One in Birmingham, I forget the name, and the other in Manchester called Cyfor. In fact, it was Nathan Buckley that suggested sending the CCTR drive to Cyfor to have it forensically retrieved, which we did. And Chubb refused to pay me, to reimburse me.
Just before you get to that point, so when you got it, it was wiped, yeah?
Yeah.
Who do you believe wiped it?
Well, here's the kicker. Here's the facts. My nephew, Ricky Bromley, who owns managing director of Middlebrook Transport, recently sold out to Eddie Stobart's. He took the hard drive from my daughter because it was in bits. He put it together, plugged it in, and he noticed immediately there was nothing there. He unplugged it. The Leicestershire Police Force claimed that he wiped it clean by plugging it in.
Yep, but yet you went on to go to professionals to.
Yeah, I went. Yeah, someone plugging it in, wiping all that hard drive clean. I don't think so. Cyfor Forensics took some time and charged £3,500 to have it retrieved.
So someone who is very guilty wouldn't do this, right?
You wouldn't have thought so, Brad, would you?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Do I look like a man who appears to be guilty? Haven't I not challenged all and everyone? You yourself, I gave you that email from Kennedy's Law, and bless you, Brad, you are trying to protect me when you say you want to be very careful because you're afraid for me being charged. Well, bring it on. Let them come to me. Let anyone. I've not had a knock at this door by anyone. Only by the police trying to silence me in 2023. I will not be silenced. I will never be silenced. I speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. The truth can be hit by a nuclear bomb. It will still stand firm. It will still stand true. These deaths need to be investigated by the police, the very body who we entrust to carry out these duties. We pay those police to carry out their duties, to investigate and not frame people. This has destroyed not only the families of the deceased, but the Leavers family. We are 110% innocent. We've done nothing wrong at all whatsoever. And if you want to finish off, Brad, you mentioned about the pandemonium down there.
Yeah. Just bear with me. I just want to do a point of clarification here. What I said to you, Ian, was I didn't want to prejudice anything moving forward. And what I didn't want you to do is get yourself into situations you want not to be in.
I wrote 40 emails to Andrew Coates, who sent me that email, Brad. Let me just clarify, because I know we wanted to clarify it with you in person. That wasn't sent to me 2 weeks ago, or less than 2 weeks ago. That was sent to me the 16th of October, 2024, giving me 14 days to take down all my social media posts because he claimed that I was ruining the careers of Kennedy's Law solicitors. From that point onwards, I wrote him 40 emails begging him to listen to me. 40 emails. He's a churchgoer like myself. I practice bell ringing every Sunday. I've checked into the background of Andrew Coates. He's a churchgoer. I wrote to him 40 emails, Brad. Around Christmas time, 2024, I said, Andrew, I'll take down all my social media posts. Please confirm that you have suspended those dishonest solicitors and you will engage with me. He ignored every single email. And so, yes, bring it on, because I've got more. If I dug into my emails, which would take me, I'd have suitcases full of them, files full. It's all the truth is there. These solicitors are dishonest.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem, because your significant frustration and their, I mean, I don't know how to even describe. I mean, there's no saying, right? Solicitors' roofs are lathed with litigants' skins, but I mean, they've done a good job on you, haven't they? And Julian.
Sterling, Brad. Sterling job. First class. But you know how they won me over, Brad? You know how they beat me? Numbers and trust. Firstly, I say numbers. Firstly, trust. The amount of emails that my wife and I wrote, and Gillian has all these, stating, we trust you. You are our legal team. We trust what you say. We put our faith in you. It's endless, the amount of emails that we sent. This happened to us through trust, although I smelt a rat.
Yeah.
What could I do? I was in their hands.
And it's not only that, though, and I've been in this situation with my ex, is that you're not only battling with the solicitors, but you're battling with your partner as well. And I guess that's pretty much what where she's saying, just stick with it. There are attorneys and that sort of stuff.
Oh, bless my wife.
I'm talking about a different sort of scenario, but
yeah, bless my wife. We've fallen out many times over this, where I wanted to get rid of them, but she put her whole trust in her solicitors, Molly Mangan and Nathan Buckley. Let me tell you what else they did. They did a first-class job on my wife's sister and her family. They made them believe that there was nothing else they could put into Gillian's appeal. They'd done all they could.
That appeal was set up to fail.
Of course it was. Of course. Yeah. Brad, without discussing too much, isn't it amazing how they could do a pager report put together by 3 solicitors from Kennedy's Law in 2023 and a CCTV report, but both those fresh pieces of evidence didn't go into Gillian's appeal. It was set up to fail. I cannot. Oh, if you took the transcripts from that, a court of appeal, permission to appeal, if you like, that day, it was farcical. Jim Agrost acted like Basil from Fawlty Towers. It was like a schoolboy stuttering, cuttering, reading out law points that those 3 judges just said, no, sorry. You had the 2005 death. They even claimed the 2005 death was cleaning a tanker out. Actually, my wife's sister and I both went out into the corridors after it had finished, screaming at Jim Agros, go back and tell them he wasn't cleaning a tanker out. They came back out and said, oh, we know he wasn't cleaning a tanker out. But that was it. Nothing. I got up and said they were murdered, left. It's a good job I left, and got on the train and came home in disgust. And at that point, the penny finally dropped. Those Kennedy's Law solicitors were bent. I had a lady helping me from South Wales. She said, Ian, when they then said they'd work pro bono to ensure my wife stayed in jail, and they had a junior solicitor start to put together the CCRC application, when this lady saw it, she said, Ian, they want your wife to remain in jail. And at that point, I thought, right, I better move here. There was another...
Is that a true story, Ian? Is that a true story?
Absolutely, Brad. Everything I say is 110% true, my friend. Well, I say 110. I've gone overboard there. It's 100% true. And so there was a gentleman up in Lytham St Anne's. who reached out to me, who'd gone through miscarriage of justice. I went up to see him. I discussed the entirety of the case. He said, "You need these two men," and he suggested the detectives who I set on in January 2024, and then we got the expert solicitor in March 2024. Yeah, and we got rid of those solicitors, although they claimed they was working pro bono. Have you ever heard of anything like it? It was disgusting. I might even have it in writing that Nathan Buckley said, well, no, he said this, Brad, actually, it's worse. He said, we was just having to put those first bits in, and he even said this to me. He said, "You're holding it up, Ian. You're holding the application up because it dragged on into early part of 2024, and they're still there claiming they're working pro bono. You're hanging on to it, Ian. Let's get it in." And this is what he said, Brad. He said, "Let's have a Teams talk with the CCRC." I'd already made my mind up by that point. And yeah, he said this, true fact. Let's have a Teams talk with the CCRC.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about something that may make you feel a bit uncomfortable, but hopefully you'll answer. How are you, Ian? And also, how is Gillian?
We're both affected mentally. We both have. We both can be talking about something like you think of something you want to say, and then a few seconds later you cannot remember it for the life of you. We both have this. We're both not the same people we were. I have night tremors again. I do my runs weekly to give myself something uncomfortable to do, to give me a challenge. When I finished the Yorkshire Marathon last Sunday, I had a massive downer all week because that had been completed. And then I feel in this void of uncertainty what's going to happen. And of course, from all of what we've been discussing here and in the past of what's happened to us, and the police, the way they are acting still to this day, and I've copied you in some emails I've sent to the Nottinghamshire Police Force recently, it makes you feel that the entire system wants a lid on this and doesn't want it exposing. I know it's not true because I know what's happening with the Criminal Case Review Commission, and I know they are impartial. But I fully also understand, as does Gillian, that they have a job to do, and it's going to take time.
Yeah, and the thing that probably, because you're on social media quite a lot, from my understanding anyway, the people see you as this confident character. You look very smart, very prune and pristine. What I want people to understand is that actually you're struggling massively, and you struggle with the basic things that you would expect to have at your age with Gillian, and I think people can relate to that because I would be in the same sort of position, thinking, we never expected to be involved in this. We never, we were looking to retire. I know you semi-retired at the time, but all the things that you were looking forward to has just been taken away. I know there's 2 lives lost, right? I get that, but I'm no longer willing to apologise for that. That's happened, right? But what we've got to talk about is I say apologise. The fact is that you know it's happened. What you're trying to do is not only fight for Gillian and also yourself, but also for the victims as well. And I don't know how that's going to pan out, but at this juncture, the focus is on Gillian. And
yeah, it's my only focus, Brad.
It's got to be tough every single night knowing Gillian's not there.
It's more than tough. It's look. Let me pour my heart out here. I have to mix up special teas at night. As you know, I don't drink. I eat clean. I fast. I do the cold water therapy. I do these runs. I go to the gym. I explain it to people like I'm a wagon with 4 wheels on going down the road. And I've gone to the gym in the past. I've had 3 attempts to train. And when you train, doing resistance training, you release endorphins. And when I can get through a training session, I do feel better. But the times that I've pulled into the car park, turned my pickup around and drove out, gone into Newark, and my mind's telling me, you get voices in your head, go to the pub, have a drink. And like I say, it's once there was 3 times. It's happened where I've gone away and gone back and trained. And I've actually, I think on one occasion I did go to the pub, but that's rare. I don't drink. I've stopped that. Not that I was a drinker anyway. Because I say, if you lose one wheel and I don't go to the gym, and then I get down to a corner of the road and you turn in that corner, you can get around with 3 wheels on. But if I lost a second wheel and say, didn't even eat clean, which is where I have to be regimental, I'm dragging, I'm a mess. So these are things that I've put in place for me to continue. I know if I sat here tonight drinking alcohol, I'd have a massive downer tomorrow. Who knows, Brad? Could I commit suicide? Do I think about it? These thoughts, of course, creep in your head. But I have a wife in jail who is innocent. And how could I desert her? I don't, I'm a big boxing fan. I'm from my mother's side. I'm from a boxing family. We've got Ricky Hatton. We all thought it was doing well. And then he goes and takes his life. Who knows, Brad? But I know I love my family. I'm the head of the family. And no, I don't believe it's going to happen. But I'm struggling. It's very, very tough. And as I explained in one of my posts earlier this week, I went to a funeral on Thursday of a friend who I met every night at the changing rooms where we go. And it's actually always nice when people ask how Gillian is. And strangers from around the country have become my friends, and they all love Gillian, care for Gillian, and ask me continuously to stay strong, Ian, keep fighting, keep up the fight. And this keeps me going.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I don't know if Phil said it on air or off air today. He said, "Do you know what, Brad? All I care about is Gillian."
Yes.
That's exactly what he said. And I want to see this through. And I thought that was so commendable. I'm not too sure if he said it on air. I don't know.
No, he did, Brad.
He definitely did say it to me today.
He did, my friend. Yeah, I've got many people from around this country. We've got one person down in Australia, Jerry, that comments to nearly all of my posts on Facebook. What a man. Is there behind me all the way. There are others, that we've got some people that comment to every one of my posts, and this is what I want. I need encouraging to continue this fight, to see it through, to ensure justice is served, to free my wife, and let's have Gavin and Nathan finally be received into God's arms, because that's where they need to go. They need to go to heaven. They are not there at this moment in time. That's my opinion.
Thanks for your time. Ian, do you want to just sound out your last song?
Sure. So we'll go and have New Order, Truth Faith 94.
Okay. Well, like I say, this was Ian said, look, I want to talk for a little bit, and it's turned into episode 6. This is how things happen, folks. And Ian welcomes comments, both positive and negative. And you can find him on all his socials. And look out for episode 7.
Please join us next Saturday between 12 to 2 p.m. on Dreamcatcher Radio, where we discuss the Greenfeeds case. We welcome discourse on DCR. If you want to get in touch, please email us at hello@dreamcatcherradio.co.uk. If you have a story you want to share, Dreamcatcher Radio is about empowering people and enriching society and advocates for freedom of speech.
Dreamcatcher Radio.
Dreamcatcher Radio is about capturing and creating dreams through music, chat, and debate. Empowering expression, enriching society. A go-to place for unsigned musical talent. A radio station which listens to its audience. Free speech, vibrant, engaging. Stream